Welcome, trainers, to a brand new season of the Trainer Trio. We've conquered Kanto, we've mastered Johto, and now it's time to set sail for Hoenn. Get ready for new battles, new Pokemon, and probably way too many water moons. My name is Chris, and I'm playing Pokemon Ruby. I'm also joined by my two fellow co-hosts.
My name is Sean, and I'm playing Pokemon Emerald, and I'm aiming to reclaim my throne as Pokemon Master.
And my name is Dustin. I'm playing Pokemon Sapphire, and hopefully I won't be getting lost in that big wide ocean.
And we are known as the Trainer Trio.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us once again after our seasonal break. This is our intro episode where we are going to be reviewing the rules that we will be following as we play along through the games. And if you would just want to jump right into our actual gameplay experiences, you can just by going to episode 1. But for this episode, we will just be going over our gameplay rules.
Guys, I'm so excited. We made it to season 3.
3 seasons in a movie.
It was quite a slog through season 2 towards the end, but it was fun seeing new Pokemon, and I am very excited to see more new Pokemon.
Feels like season 2 went on for so long. Now we're on season 3.
Yeah, and it doesn't really feel like a new region. It feels like actually getting to experience our childhood region of Hoenn, and that's why I'm so excited.
And this is definitely the one that I think I have the most familiarity with.
So let's just jump into our first topic, which is our game assignment. Luckily, Gen 3 follows the tradition that Gen 1 and Gen 2 had, where we have 2 base games, and then we have a third special game. And what are the odds? We happen to have 3 members of the Trainer Trio. So we're all going to be playing different games. Me, personally, Chris, I'm going to be playing Pokemon Ruby.
And I, Dustin, am going to play Pokemon Sapphire. This is actually the only game I haven't played of the 3.
I am playing the only one left, Pokemon Emerald, which, fun fact, I have never fully completed Pokemon Emerald. I know me and Dustin, we used to have it a while back, and it was Dustin's game, so I never really played it because Dustin didn't like to share. But I had Sapphire, so that's what I played. And so I'm very excited to try. I've definitely heard a lot of amazing things about Emerald. So I'm very excited to fully experience it this time.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing if the Pokemon Hunter title continues to be granted to those who play the third game.
Just have to see if I am willing to put that effort in that I have not put in any of the other seasons.
That was my prediction, that you would not be last in your Pokedex count by the end of the season, like you have been.
That's a bold prediction. We'll see if it works out for you.
All right. Do you guys want to jump into some rules that we've set for season 3?
Let's do it.
Rule number 1. We cannot use Pokemon used in the Trainer Trio's previous region battles. And if you guys are unaware what they are, please go back and listen to season 1 and season 2. And that will go over every single Pokemon that we've used.
Also, I would like to mention that we will be posting these online on Twitter, so you can always find them there too.
Or just go back and listen to many hours of podcast content, please.
Yeah, re-listen to our podcast, please. I just want to clarify, that is, we can't use any of the Pokemon that we use in our previous region battles, not just that were in totality used in region battles.
So I unfortunately will not be able to use Shuckle this time around.
What do you mean, unfortunately? I'm so happy I don't have to see that stupid Pokemon ever again.
Rule number 2 is going to be a slight modification of last season's rule, where each party before the gym must match the gym leader's number of Pokemon. We're going to be doing it somewhat similar. However, we're going to be gaining Pokemon steadily throughout the season. So, for example, the first gym leader for Ruby and Sapphire has 2 Pokemon. We'll match that. Sean has a little harder. He has 3 Pokemon. But then as we go along, by Gym 2, we'll have 3 Pokemon. In the middle, we'll have 4, getting all the way up to 6 total Pokemon by the end. So we can steadily increase our Pokemon count as we face the gym leaders.
As Chris somewhat mentioned, the reason why we're doing it this way is because Pokemon Emerald has a lot of different variety compared to Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. So a lot of the gyms that I will be fighting will have different numbers of Pokemon that the gym leader has compared to my fellow co-hosts. So this way, we're still keeping that same original role from the last season, but just modifying it slightly.
And I know, technically we even followed this rule fully because there was, a gym leader that went down to 3 after we got to 4 and, just stuck with 4. So it's just really clarify that.
And I see a little footnote that you cannot bring in extra Pokemon to the gym just to use its HM. I don't know where this rule really came from. So let us clarify that if you need a Pokemon for Surf and you no longer have a water Pokemon, that better be part of your battlers.
Yeah, Chris.
Rule number 3, we will be setting a level target before facing the Elite Four, where everyone must have their full party at this level before facing the Elite Four. We're currently determining it to be level 55. However, I assume as we play through, we'll see if any adjustments need to be made.
Rule number 4, you have to keep your star Pokemon within your party. And this doesn't necessarily mean like you have to always take the star Pokemon into all of our gym battles and our region battles. What it does mean is that you can't just remove them and keep them in your PC. And then another rule that only really tackled me and Sean last season, rule number 5, if 2 of us have the same Pokemon, the winner of the region battle gets to keep that Pokemon, while the loser needs to replace the Pokemon with a new one by the next battle.
Shout out Darkness.
Darkness was stronger than Midnight, is what we've discussed. And then rule number 6, which I thought actually made the last game much harder and appreciate it, was you have to play on set mode.
Moving on to our next couple set of rules. Next rule is that we have to save before we start the Elite Four. And if we fail the Elite Four, we have to restart from that point, just basically to prevent any of us over leveling or training our Pokemon inadvertently by losing the Elite Four. Next, you need to name at least one of your Pokemon, which has never been an issue with me and Chris, and seeing how Dustin got a little bit more creative last season, I don't think will be an issue anymore. And now the final rule that we've been using since the beginning of this franchise is that we cannot use any legendary Pokemon in battle or throughout our run, except we are finally adding an exception to this rule that the legendary Pokemon can be used this time around. And I guess you just have to wait and see to find out which legendary Pokemon that is.
We can reveal it afterwards if no one gets it.
It's Deoxys. You just have to make sure you can look up how to take the spaceship into space to catch it.
Chris, now you ruined the surprise. Because everyone's going to be mad when they find out it's going to be Deoxys, Mew, and Celebi. All right, well, those are all our rules for going into this next season. So let's move on to the fun little challenges that we will be implementing against ourselves as well, just to add some more flair on top of the rules we just discussed.
So the first challenge that we're going to talk about is a battle tower competition. So as maybe some of you are aware, there is a battle tower that is featured in all 3 versions of the Generation 3 games. Sean has it pretty nice, where he has an entire battle frontier. However, Dustin and I are locked out to just a battle tower. So that's how we're going to even the playing field, is by having a competition to see who can get the furthest. However, we are only going to have one chance. Once you lose, you are done and must record your record at the battle tower.
And we'll see if there's a trophy to hand out by the end of the season for whoever gets the furthest.
Challenge number 2 will be to try not to over-level each gym. We're not going to set a hard level cap. However, part of the fun of playing through these games is not to over-level, so we're not going to try and do that. And rule 3 is that we will not be looking at online guides, or in my case, printed strategy guides, while playing the game. So I know Sean has pretty much been playing that way during the first 2 seasons, where he's been going in blind and playing and then only looking things up as he got stuck. So we will be taking that approach where we will be playing through each area blind. And then after we beat the gym leader, then we'll be allowed to look back and see if we missed anything.
I feel that should even the playing field for upping our Pokédexes, because I know Chris and I were looking at like how to capture a lot of the Pokemon or where you can capture them. So it'll be exciting to see.
Yeah, I want to say by the first gym leader, I had over 10 Pokemon just because I caught every single Pokemon that I could, because I could look up on Bulbapedia what the 5% encounters were. But now, you better be finding at least 20 wild Pokemon in each route to be able to see if you can find them all.
Wow, 20 encounters. Sounds like a waste of time.
And then moving into our Pokemon selection. So we We'll be choosing starter Pokemon, which we will reveal in episode 1. But how we choose the starter Pokemon is going to start with Chris. He gets the first choice, and then me, and then Sean last. So he's just given whatever Pokemon he is given. And we do that in the order of our region battles last season. Chris won the entire championship. Very close comeback. Highly recommend re-listening to that. Otherwise, we are adding an additional Pokemon that we get to choose in the same order, and we're calling it the Locked Out Pokemon. So the Locked Out Pokemon is basically one Pokemon that only you can get, and the other 2 Trainer Trio members cannot get. It cannot be a starter Pokemon, and it must be obtainable in your game's version. So the Locked Out Pokemon will also be revealing at the point to which when we add that Pokemon to our party. Fun little thing to look out for in the future. All right, Sean, you want to go into our ultimate team?
Yeah, as you seasoned listeners now know, since we're in season 3, we, at the end of each season, we select one Pokemon from the teams that we use in our Poke Showdowns that we bring up to our ultimate team. We're getting to the point, by the end of this season, we will have 3 Pokemon on our ultimate teams, which we believe is enough to finally have an ultimate battle. So at the end of this season, we're going to each choose our final ultimate team member to add, and then we will use those Pokemon that we've used in the past couple of seasons in one big old battle of our ultimate teams to see who is really the Pokemon Master, not just of the generations, but whose Pokemon Mastery exceeds the generations. For these ultimate team battles, we'll provide some of the new rules for that, but just as some reminders, let's go through the 2 Pokemon that we've all selected onto our ultimate team. Since I'm talking, I guess I could go first. From Red, I have my Dragonite, Shenron the Dragonite, and from Gold, I have Darkness the Umbreon.
And my ultimate team picks from Pokemon Blue was Greg the Executor, and from Pokemon Crystal, it was Teddy the Ursaring.
And then for my Pokemon picks for the ultimate team, from Yellow, it's Cloyster, just Cloyster. And then from Silver, it's Gengar, Rear Admiral Scar.
Do you guys want to hear some differences in the new generation of Pokemon?
Yeah, what's new and exciting, Chris?
Before I start, all credit to Bulbapedia. This is where I got the majority of my list from. The first change is, though it's incompatible with Generations 1 and 2, Generation 3 enhanced the Pokemon world the most yet, bringing the most changes, which include 135 new Pokemon, the most added since Generation 1, bringing the total to 386. There are now things called abilities that we keep talking about in our Pokemon episodes that we say, wow, in later generations, these Pokemon have abilities. Well, they're finally here. They are things that are attributed to the Pokemon that give them either different effects in or out of battle. And in my opinion, it's one of the best changes that they made to Pokemon. The next change is the Pokemon storage system. You guys no longer have tiny little capacities that fill up and block you from catching new Pokemon. Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome. I can't wait, honestly. No longer needing Bill to call us if our storage system is full.
And then needing to save the game every time you had to change the box. Sean had to do that a lot, right?
Oh, so often.
So yes, on that note, if you catch a Pokemon and your box is full, it will just send it to the next open box. It is wonderful. There are battle backgrounds now. So instead of a plain white background, you're going to have a different looking background based on the area that you're in, whether it's a grassy area, desert area, fire area. Pretty cool. There's the introduction of Pokemon contests, where Pokemon show off their style in one of 5 contest conditions, with contest stats being enhanced by Pokeblocks. And then through this, you can earn ribbons, which carry on to later games. There are 7 new Pokeball variants, replacing those introduced in Generation 2. So no more apricorns. Instead, you can just buy new types of Pokeballs like the Nest Ball, the Net Ball, the Timer Ball, and even more. There are now 2 new villainous teams, Team Aqua and Team Magma, to shake it up a little bit from only seeing Team Rocket for the first 2 generations. Weather can now be found out on the field and can be activated at the start of battle, while also hail has now been added as one of those weather conditions, just meaning that if you're in a specific area of the game, there's a chance that your battle can start with a weather condition. unlike Gen 2, which did have weather, but you needed to use a specific move to activate it. Another major change, double battles, where both sides use 2 Pokemon at one time, are introduced. That's also a huge change. We will be utilizing the double battle feature at different points in this game. And then a few other major alterations from Generation 2. The berry system, which was introduced in Johto, has been completely overhauled. There's all different types of berries that do different effects, and they're all called different things, so we no longer just have the berry, the poison cure berry. And the good news is we are playing on official hardware with working batteries, so we will be able to utilize this function correctly. That being said, talking about the battery and berries, there is a built-in clock in the game, and that's all the built-in clock really does is help with the berry cycle. There is no longer a day-night cycle that was introduced in Gen 2, so very unfortunate there. If you guys were looking for an Umbreon or Espeon, which are actually locked from us because we used them last gen, doesn't matter, you can't use one.
Really? You can't level in this game? Do they have time mechanics in the future games? Or
Some of them do, not all of them though.
so like basically the second generation is like the only game you could get those 2 Pokemon?
No, there's other.
Starting in Gen 4, you can, just not Gen 3.
Okay, got it. I went from like the only EV evolutions we could get to now just can't get them.
A nice mechanical change, in battle passive damage such as poison, burn, or leech seed is now resolved at the end of each turn rather than immediately after the Pokemon attacks. That is a very improved feature because I kept forgetting that was a thing in the first 2 generations and it would catch me very much off guard.
Well, then let me just say one thing you did not mention is there's the introduction of Pokemon Natures, which I don't want to get too much into just now because I was planning on delving much more into in our first episode. But that's just a cool concept for all of you listeners and something to excite you to listen to the next episode when I go into more detail on what that really means.
I did forget about that. Thank you for reminding me.
I know, Chris.
And then a couple additions to Pokemon Emerald, multi-battles where 2 opponent trainers encounter the player at the same time. Then you can initiate a double battle. Conversely, if you want, you can go up and speak to them separately and just do a single battle. I actually think that's a really cool feature, and I don't know if they've ever brought that back. I mentioned the Battle Frontier. Sean will have access to a bunch of battle facilities, and I don't know if it's set in stone yet, but it would be pretty cool if Sean challenged each facility and was able to win a couple symbols. And then you also have animated Pokemon sprites, just like Pokemon Crystal, so a little bit more fun.
Oh, that's cool.
That should be all the changes. And then now we can talk a little bit about the exclusive Pokemon, just a short list in each game. So first off, the Pokemon that are not in my game, Ruby, will be the Lotad line. So Lotad, Lombre, and Ludicolo, Sableye, Seviper, Lunatone, and the box legendary Kyogre. Unlike Gen 2, you cannot get both legendary Pokemon, which is just such a shame.
And the Pokemon not in Sapphire is the C-Dot line with C-Dot, Nuzleaf, Shiftry, Mawile, and Zangoose, Solrock, and the other box legendary, Groudon.
You guys also Latias.
Oh, again?
E-reader cards. E-reader cards. Don't worry about it. I have an e-reader. We'll leave that.
And not in Emerald is Surskit line, Metatite line, Rosalia? Is it an Emerald? Dang, what? Zangoose and Lunatone. Lunatone? That's so weird. Emerald has some weird non-accessible Pokemon.
Yeah. Lunatone is only in Sapphire, and conversely, Zangoose is only in Ruby. And I don't believe there's any Pokemon that are exclusive to Emerald, because that would be weird for Ruby and Sapphire to both not have a Pokemon.
But you know what I do have accessibility to? Both of your box art legendaries.
That's unfair. I want to play Pokemon Emerald. Can we switch?
Nope.
Now going into just a little bit about the history of the release of the game.
So just diving into the history of Generation 3 a little bit, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald released in 2002 and 2004, respectively, in Japan, and then 2003 and 2005 outside of Japan. And I'm sure that you guys would agree with this. Generation 3 was almost a reset for the Pokemon franchise. Generation 1 was huge. It was the big Poke craze. And Generation 2 was very much a sequel. It had a lot of the same Pokemon. It was compatible with Generation 1. Kanto was in the post game. It really felt like those two games went together. And then Generation 3 just feels completely different, which makes a little bit of sense because if this game came out in 2003, this is now about 7 years after the release of Gen 1. So the kids who played the first generation are now aging out of Pokemon and doing different things. So this is kind of a new generation that's now getting introduced to Pokemon. However, I kind of feel like this is the forgotten generation a little bit just because of that. People kind of thought that Pokemon was dying, or maybe that the fad was over when Gen 3 came out. The games were still pretty successful. I believe they were the best-selling games on the Game Boy Advance. And if you guys look at the resale values of Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald today, they all go for over $100 each, with Emerald over $200. So to say that these games are not popular would be very incorrect.
One thing I want to add, just chime in here, is that throughout Pokemon's very long existence, there's a couple generations that you could pinpoint were quote unquote reset generations. You really can see the Pokemon company is trying to not really capture, but remake what made Gen 1 so special, with it being the either the region design or more specifically with the type of Pokemon that you encounter. Like Chris already said, this Gen 3 is introducing the most amount of Pokemon since Gen 1. And what you'll find specifically in Ruby and Sapphire, not as much as Emerald, is that you can't really find a lot of Pokemon from Gens 1 and 2 in just the normal game. Most of them that you can find, if any, aren't until after you complete the entire game. And so with that feeling of people playing this the first time, and most of the Pokemon they are encountering and adding to their party are Pokemon they've never seen before, you could see it in a whole that this is one of the generations where they're trying to do that soft reset, trying to introduce all these new Pokemon and give players that same feeling of interacting with a bunch of Pokemon that they've never even seen before.
Right. And that was such a big deal. There were people who had been playing Pokemon since the day it came out. They had their first Charmander, traded him up to Generation 2, and kept using that Charizard. And when these games came out, I bet you they wanted to trade it up again and just have that Charizard keep growing with them. But unfortunately, Gen 3 was a reset, as we said. They were not compatible with previous games. And I'm sure that decision lost a couple fans, but it was pretty much necessary. Those Gen 1 and Gen 2 games are very clunky, using outdated code, and we needed a major overhaul of the system. So kudos to the Pokemon team for taking that risk and probably angering a few people to greatly improve their games.
This generation does have one of the biggest core memories to me because my first starter Pokemon that I ever chose was Torchic. And that was actually the first Pokemon I ever got to level 100 was the level 100 Blaziken. And back in the day, we'd all be on the playground and he'd be like my prime Pokemon that I'd be using against all the other kids. And then one day I did end up getting sick and had to go to the hospital. During that time, Sean was playing Ruby. And then finally when I got out of the hospital, I came home. I was like, all right, where's my Pokemon game? And we couldn't find it.
Oh no.
The Pokemon game had been lost. So I lost the very first level 100 Pokemon I ever got. As the consolation prize, my parents got me Emerald.
What happened to Emerald?
Time.
That I did not lose, though. I can tell you that much.
Do you have any memories, Chris?
I mean, just in general, Generation 3 was the very first generation that got me into Pokemon, which is something really special. I got Pokemon Sapphire when I was, I think, in first grade, because I remember my sister got Pokemon Sapphire, I got Yoshi's Island, and we got a silver Game Boy Advance SP. I think both of those got lost at the same time. I want to say the Game Boy Advance had Sapphire in it, like later on, probably in middle school. So that was unfortunate. But yeah, those were my very first games. And then I slowly collected the other ones. And definitely Gen 3 is the most nostalgic generation for me. Even though Gen 4 came out when I was in probably 4th or 5th grade. So I feel like that was more prime time to play it. And I played probably more hours of it. I think Gen 3 is the special generation for me.
I remember my first game was Pokemon Sapphire. So fun fact, on anything you see gaming, my name is BlazenRuby. Everywhere, even on this Discord call, BlazenRuby. And I got that from the name Ruby because when we play Pokemon games, I always just name the rival the opposite thing. And so, if you're playing Red I'm named in blue or whatever. And so for Sapphire, I named my rival Ruby. I'm just like, Ruby, that is such a cool name. I don't know, it just stuck with me, Ruby, and I just somehow thought like Fire Ruby, BlazenRuby, and that's how I came up with my gamer tag. But I digress. My 2 favorite Pokemon were Mudkip and Kyogre. It was so cool. Looking at it now, like, wow, 2 waters. I probably had a lot of water Pokemon without even realizing it in this generation, because I also love Wailord.
It's funny because we start on opposites. Because I also had a fire type Pokemon with Ruby, but then I'm definitely more of a water type trainer now, and you're definitely more of a fire type trainer. So it's funny how our first ever Pokemon didn't really decide our trainer type.
Yeah, but very much looking forward to playing through this generation again.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. It hits in the feels. And it probably does for my fellow co-hosts because Dustin chose the Little Root theme to enter our podcast in season 1.
This brings us a close to our episode. If you would like to see all the rules that we just went over today, you will be able to find it on our YouTube at the Trainer Trio Podcast. And if you would like to email us with any stories of your own, any memories from Generation 3, or even of the previous 2 generations that we played, you can email us at the Trainer Trio Podcast at gmail.com. In our next episode, episode 1, we will be talking about our introduction to the new region of Hoenn and our experiences leading up to the very first gym leader, the rock-loving honors student, Roxanne. Until next time, we are the Trainer Trio signing off. Catch you in Rustboro City, trainers.
See you in Hoenn, guys.
Hope there's not a lot of water.